So a very good afternoon to all the online participants and the participants present here with us. I hope you had a good lunch. And today's session, we have with us Professor Lakshmi. Ma'am is the professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at Malvi National Institute of Technology, MNIT Jaipur. Ma'am has earned her PhD from the University of Southampton, UK, her MTech in CSE from IIT Delhi, and her BE in ECE from JNV University, Jodhpur. Ma'am is a distinguished researcher. She has over 47 journal and 35 conference publications, supervised 27 PhD scholars, and led 13 major research projects funded by agencies including DRDO, DST, MITI, and international collaborations like CEFI-PRA. Her areas of expertise span information security, machine vision, embedded systems, and AI and cybersecurity. And in order to give a warm welcome to Professor Vidya Lakshmi, I'll invite Professor Manju Singh to kindly present her with a planter. Yes. Today's session will be on understanding bias in AI-driven knowledge discovery. Hope you have a very enriching and learning session with ma'am. Over to you, ma'am. Okay. So a very good afternoon to everyone. And what we thought 5 years back was not possible has now become possible. So machine learning and AI has broken the last barrier between man and machine, and that is the language. Till now, we were all secure in the knowledge of that, okay, machines can, maybe they can read our handwriting, maybe they can send to us, but maybe they cannot convert this into language, or maybe they cannot understand what we are speaking. But now this myth is broken with advent of large language models. But there are problems. Though AI has come as a very promising technique, but there are some problems associated with it, and that is bias. So today we are going to talk about what is bias and how it actually creeps in AI-driven system, and what are the impact of this on AI-driven system design. दोनों तो नहीं कर सकते, unfortunately. So presentation layout will be just going through briefly about what we mean by knowledge discovery and what is AI-driven knowledge discovery. What we mean by bias and how this bias creeps in. To understand that, we'll be just going through an introductory AI pipeline. Then what are the different types of biases? What are the sources of biases? Then some case studies where bias has an impact on human population and society at large. And how can this bias be reduced, and what would be the future for AI once, or what should be the future of AI? We'll be talking about that. So we all know that ultimately we are dealing with data, and from this data we are going to extract some meaning, which we call information, and using this information, collecting this information over the years and infer knowledge from it. So we'll be defining these terms now more formally. So data is any raw or unorganized facts, figures, or symbols which are often fragmented and incomprehensible to human beings because there is no context provided to the data. And when we provide context to the data and by processing it and organizing it, and this context can answer about questions about what this data is about, when was this data collected, from where this data has been obtained, and who might be owning this data, who might be the user of the data, then we are imparting some meaning to the data and this becomes information. And when we combine the information over the years or historical information and try to infer some insight into how the data or how the data analysis can help us make decisions, we call it knowledge. And when we apply AI techniques to derive knowledge from the information or the data, this becomes AI-driven knowledge discovery. So this is a very simple example. Let's say I'm talking about three numbers, 15, 20, 18. Now, standing alone, or they don't make any sense. Just by looking at this number, we do not know what they mean. But once I start giving the context, so let's say these figures are actually representing the number of units that were sold in a given month for a given product, then they start making, this is now information. So let's say we're talking about three numbers. So let's say the first number was the average units that were sold per year of the product, and 20 is the average of the past month, and 18 is the number of units that we have sold till now. Now, again, this does not add to our knowledge, but if we combine this information with the previous year data, then maybe we can derive some more insights that looking at the trend from the previous year, the next month sales are going to be larger. This year's average is going to be larger than what was sold by the company in the last month. And this can give insights to the policymakers or the managers of the company or the organization to devise their marketing strategies or devise their strategies to how to streamline where the problems are occurring in product sales. So generally, when we talk about data, data is something which machines are dealing with, and information is something which is a kind of a summary and labels which are assigned to the data, and then maybe some kind of summarization of the data so that the human can make sense of it. And knowledge is then using this information to derive some insights which can be used for decision making at the higher up levels. So this can be now shown by this diagram. So from data, we are deriving information. Information, we are deriving knowledge. And then we use AI techniques to it. This becomes AI-driven knowledge. Now, till now, data was also being analyzed through machine learning techniques. What AI has done is AI has also made it possible to use the data which was available in natural language. And now the queries can be given in natural language instead of converting them into a kind of standard format or some kind of format which only machine could accept. So the queries and responses can be in human language, and this is what AI has added to the existing techniques, and that's why it has become, and that's why the old documents which were in the text form can also be understood and read by AI and can be integrated with the data. So AI knowledge discovery has now made it possible to use multimodal data, not only text, it can contain documents, it can contain handwritten text, it can contain speech, it can have audio, it can have video. So it can have data collected from various resources and still can combine it to give it to the overall data can still have some format which is desired by the user. So what is the advantage of this AI-driven knowledge discovery? Well, one thing is, as I told you, that it can deal with data from different sources, and these sources may or may not be having the similar format. They could be written in different language, they could be in different text, they could be different pictures, pictures with the text, and still AI can infer information from such diverse data sources. And not only that, it can do it at a very fast speed, and so it can help smooth the workflows of the organization, and organization can make use of the data which might not be in the digital form, and can use this and can enrich their data uh, bases and knowledge bases, and that can be used for development of better product and maybe faster product, faster prototyping, etc. Not only this, AI can also try to, from the historical data, AI can also see what could be the risk factors associated with the process. And these risk factors can be detected earlier and hence can be mitigated in the entire process. So as I've already stated, AI can be used to automate the process of knowledge extraction. It can integrate the data from various sources, and because now humans can provide their queries in natural language, we don't need specialized training for the workers to interface with such systems. And not only that, AI has capacity to absorb very large data, analyze that data in very small time. And not only that, it can not only give the dominant pattern or the majority pattern, it can also give information about infrequent or rare patterns, which can be used by the human to improve the system design of smooth the data pipeline processes, etc. So these are the benefits. Efficiency can be increased, and it can lead to better productivity, and productivity which can be free from or which can have reduced risk, or the developers or the designers are aware of what risks might be involved, and they can take informed decision to mitigate those risks. It can improve decision making because the patterns which are being mined by AI are not just restricted to majority patterns. It can also look at the patterns which are minority, and it can also do the analysis of how the patterns are evolving or devolving across the years. And it can also analyze data with publicly available data from other companies or other resources, and can correlate to find out what could be a better way to target a particular target the outcome of a particular process. AI has also made it possible to enhance the collaboration between the teams. Initially, the problem was the language. Different people from the different regions or different countries speaking different languages and might not have the same level of understanding of a common language, which used to be English in most of the cases. But with AI as a language translator or language interpreter, and that too almost real-time language interpretation, people may not miss the information or may not misunderstand the information which is being spoken, and they can all be on the same level and collaboration can improve. When a new employee enters the company, he or she may not be knowing, enters a company or an organization, he or she may not be aware of how the things are working. But with AI tools available, they can learn at their own pace that which department of which sector of the company or the organization is working in which area, and if they face a specific problem, to whom they can go for help. And this information can now be learned at their own pace, in their own comfort zone. They need not go and ask questions to other people. They can ask AI the same questions, and that can make them feel very secure. Sometimes people are afraid to ask questions, especially from their superiors. So, but in this particular case, AI has made it possible for people to acquire information without any without involvement of any other human. So their onboarding can be faster. They can actually assimilate with the other teams of the or other colleagues much better way. And this can also improve the collaboration as well as productivity. And AI can help in personalized learning. So let's say some IT professional joins a company and he is not comfortable with Java, but he might be comfortable with other languages, say Python. But with AI tools, he can actually use his Python knowledge to know how to learn Java quickly. And why it is personalized? Because the person can ask a question on the basis of his expertise level and can get the information accordingly. So these are, of course, benefits, but let's look at the other side also, because everything, there's always a cost to everything. So one of the major problem with AI remains bias and fairness. The problem is AI, unlike other techniques, is very heavily dependent on the data on which these systems are trained. So it is data-driven algorithms. Data, the way it is collected, the way it is stored, it may not be free of the biases. So let's take an example. Let's talk about how many Nobel Awards were won by people in, let's say, 1900. I don't know whether that's a correct year or not. Let's say 1930 to 1950. Most of these are likely to be male because female were, in most of the countries, female didn't have access to education. But that doesn't mean that, and let's say if AI uses this criteria to somehow make a model of what could be the capability of human beings, it is quite possible it is going to put males above females in that category, but which may not be a true reflection because this data might not be
Sorry.
Am I audible?
Shilpa ma'am, are we audible? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hotspot चला दे. Hotspot.
इसमें वो चला गया होगा ना, वो इस पे वो थोड़ी आया होगा,
हैं?
प्रेजेंटेशन इस पे थोड़ी होगा।
लाइव भी स्टॉप हो गई है. लाइव
ये तो प्रेजेंटेशन पहले दिख रहा था, वो कहाँ से दिखेगा अब?
मैम वो शेयर स्क्रीन कहाँ?
इस पे था ना अपना, तो अपन इस पे
इस पे
डाउनलोड।
नहीं ओपन हुआ।
I think I'll join on this. That will be better. That's the best way. क्या से मुझे वो लिंक दिया हुआ, भेजा हुआ?
हम इसके व्हाट्सएप को लिंक कर.
मैम व्हाट्सएप से चलते हैं।
अच्छा.
वीडियो कर सकते हैं हमारी प्रेजेंटेशन।
तो क्या होगा, कैसे एक्सप्रेस करेंगे बातें? I'm gonna actually be checking. Yes.
क्या है ये?
डाउनलोड करना।
भाई डाउनलोड नहीं करके भी हो जाता है ब्राउज़र से। देख
इसमें
See nothing.
इसमें से डिस्कनेक्ट कर दो। अच्छा 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 ठीक है। इसको मैं बंद कर देती हूँ।
मोबाइल डेटा से कर
Only. Please time over.
ओके
Time लगता है ना?
ओके
Okay. Sorry for interruption, please.
देखना विजिबल है आप लोगों को किसी
यस
को?
मैम
ओके
जस्ट स्लाइड शो मैम
So one of the problems, I hope I'm audible to the online participants. चलाया तो था ना मैं, मीट कहाँ गया? ये तो व्हाट्सएप है।
ये देखना सर्च वगैरह
ये तो मेरा डेस्कटॉप है। वेबएक्स कहाँ गया? वापस बंद हो गया क्या?
नहीं मैम
स्टॉप शेयरिंग आ रहा है। इसमें प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगी। स्टॉप वीडियो कर देती हूँ।
Yes.
वो कहाँ गया? मैसेज
मैसेज
मैसेज करने का काम ये है।
ये रहा ये चैट
I'm really sorry for this. Am I audible? If someone can confirm, online participants.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
यस मैम प्रीति मैम हैज गिवन अ थम्स
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Increase हो गया क्या वो presentation? ठीक है. So we are talking about bias and fairness, and that's why because the data itself will be skewed, and it can be skewed because of many reasons. The AI-driven knowledge discovery is not free of bias. So fairness is a challenge. Another is AI has a very high cost in terms of power as well as in terms of computational complexity. And the problem is that as LLM becomes or the model become larger, they require more and more data, and the data availability is now becoming a issue and a challenge. And at the same time, there is already old IT infrastructure available, and integrating AI systems with this is another problem. Another concern about AI is that inequality gap is increasing. Through AI is supposed to democratize availability of the information. The problem is that access to resources may not be uniformly distributed, part one. Part two, those who are privileged are getting more access as compared to the people who are less privileged. Also, the people who are speaking languages which are not represented in, for example, very few people or few thousand people speaking a language because AI does not have access to the resources of that language, these people are deprived from the AI knowledge that can be discovered by AI. So when I talk about minority groups, I'm actually talking about the groups which are speaking a language which is not very prominently visible in literature or documents. And these people may not be able to have the same kind of access or same kind of access to the AI resources as other people can have. Another challenge with AI would be that are we somewhere reducing the social diversity? So if people start listening to the same kind of songs, same kind of themes, same kind of thoughts, it might actually reduce the diversity in the system, and it could create a kind of human race which might not be looking at the same problem with different perspective, and this can actually impact innovation. Can you please switch off microphone? कुछ आपके वहाँ पे on है? और या फिर आप अपना वो वॉल्यूम लो कर लीजिए ना,
I have also muted.
वॉल्यूम 0 कर दो ना, सॉरी. Then there are some ethical concerns that over-reliance on AI can actually reduce human critical thinking and solving capability. It can also put data privacy and security at risk. Right now, we do not know the kind of the data on which AI has been trained and the kind of the prompts which are being assessed by AI. We do not know, even the developers do not know, AI designers do not know how this data is actually assimilated in AI, and can this data be revealed later because of other kind of prompts. So data privacy and security is a question. Then another concern is job displacement, effects of which are visible in some of the sectors now. And AI might understand what people are saying, but it might not understand it with the same emotions and same compassion or empathy as humans understand. So the decision taken by AI might not be taking these factors into account, and this could be sometimes not very acceptable in society. The problem with the AI algorithms are that they are not transparent. We do not know why AI is taking a decision the way it is taking it. It is not always easy to understand the reasoning behind the decision, and this is another challenge area. And considering that nowadays only 4 or 5 companies are actually having AI capability, and they do have the money and the computational power to invest in it, can this lead to a technical divide which is already been happening across the countries? Another thing is, because of this technology, can the role of governance or role of governments be affected because of this technology? So these are some of the questions that there are many debates, and people will be taking different views, and that is the actually beauty of humanity, that human beings can take different views and still can arrive at a decision. But with AI, through AI might be accumulating all those views, but it might not be presenting all the views, which may actually impact the decision making in some of the situations. But the problem is AI is already here and it is being used and it is impacting our lives. So we need to now understand AI and maybe try to develop our policies on regulations and decisions to understand how to use this AI to the maximum benefit of the humanity. So in case of customer services, the input given by the users are analyzed by machine to find out what patterns, what complaints, what queries are most common, and accordingly deal with that. And most of the companies are now replacing their customer care center. Customer care center with bots which are trying to reply to the customers. Similarly, browsers are also collecting. Nowadays, the browser experience has changed. If you write a query, there is an AI generated answer which is actually accumulated from top 10 searches or such websites, and then it trying to summarize the answer, which is a summary of that. Now, this actually reduces the manual visit of all the web pages and trying to derive the summary. But at the same time, it is going to make people less involved in trying to uncover the knowledge. And the problem is with that AI agent, they are actually dependent on what AI thinks to be a best fit for an answer, which might not be what a person might be looking for. In workplace, again, the companies are trying to trying to make their internal organization or organizational details or the problems that the employee encountered from day to day, and trying to create AI-based solutions so that the help can be made easily available to the newcomers and even existing employees. In marketing and sales, the machine learning and data analytics was always there because the purpose was to increase the sale of the product, and so targeted advertising was always being has already been there, and now AI is actually making it. In legal and financial also, instead of going to the library and trying to find out what were the relevant cases, people are using AI tools to actually find this information, compile this information in very less amount of time. This is also impacting the job prospects of the new people who are coming to these fields. Healthcare, yes, a lot of machine learning techniques and AI-based report generation has been used in health care. Especially for detection of tumors or detection of or carrying out the best way or the safest way to carry out the surgery. Now let's try to understand what is AI bias. So, well, there are so many definitions. I've taken 4 of them from different resources, but the last one is important because that has been generated by Google AI. So now if you look at this particular information, this is actually taking a summary from all other places and then trying to give an overall picture of what a bias would mean. So basically, when we talk about bias, the bias means that AI output is going to discriminatory against certain group. Now that group could be referring to group of institutions, it could be group of people, it could be a type of product, it could be anything. So it means that the outcomes are not fair to everyone. So they are disproportionate to the representation of that particular category or that particular class. And this is not because of the error in the system. It is the problem, the way the AI systems have been trained. It is part of that. So now we are going to talk about bias in AI. So what we need to understand is this is not intentional, mostly unintentional. No one wants the system to be biased, because if the system is biased, then the public is not going to trust it, and this will be not a good model for the business. The problem is that this is actually embedded into the system, the way the system has developed. And most of the time, it is difficult to detect the bias unless you know the data on which the system has been trained and you have analyzed that data in each and every aspect. Now, main problem with this is that generally we think that machines are unbiased, machines are fair, and we trust them. Why we trust them? Because all of us have done reservations, bookings, ticket bookings, and then we are also aware of seat allotment in various national level examination, and everyone trusts those systems because they know that machines are not going to be biased. Unfortunately, with AI being biased means people will stop trusting machines. So naturally, if we want to retain the same system where the automation and the machines are trusted, and we need to make AI an unbiased platform. Why bias matters? Because AI is primarily being used to make decisions. So if already the decisions are based on biased data, then it could be very lopsided decision, which might not help all the people. It might help only certain people. And ultimately, it may result in loss of trust, loss of reliability, etc. Now, in case of healthcare, for example, if AI systems are not able to detect certain symptoms with people having different skin tone, then these people at risk of not being diagnosed properly, and they might not get treatment in time. So AI might actually be adversary to these such systems. Similarly, in finances, people generally apply for the loan, and the banks and the financial institutions, they will try to ensure that their loans are secure. So they will try to give it to the people who can pay it back. But if they think that people are this person who has applied loan is coming from an area where low income people are staying, then that person might not have the same chance of acquiring a loan than a person with a high income. So this is something which was actually the financial institution might not even see his loan history, but may decide it on the basis of the place where the person is living. Similarly, in law, we will be talking about real case systems which actually have happened and have actually harmed people because of the AI decisions, especially in law enforcement, hiring and promotion, and education. We'll be talking about 3 and 4 such. Another problem with AI is that not only it is biased, it actually amplifies bias. This, which I think many of the other experts might have said the same thing. So why it happens? Why it happens is because the way the AI systems are driven. So generally there is already some initial bias because of the data. And now this bias is entering the model, which is learning on that data. So naturally that model has also imbibed some of the bias. Then it is outputting decision which is already based on that bias. In most of the cases, this new data on which the output is being generated, that also becomes part of the training. So the bias again enters the system. So it keeps on amplifying. And this is where the problem occurs. So what could be the source of bias? To understand that, there is a very simple diagram. So on the left-hand side, we see all the data sources. The topmost, which shows like a stacked disk, is basically a format, a structured data, which is a database. Then the mic is indicative of that you are having something related to speech or sound or audio. Then the next one is your images, then videos or other multimedia, and then document. So these are the data sources which are for the, and then there will be internet. So they are also taking data from the internet. Now, all this data may itself be very large, so entire data may or may not be used for the system training. So there will be some selection mechanism. And then this data, even if you select the mechanism, the data might not be complete because you're getting the data from various resources. So something might be missing. So you have to clean the data and you have to ensure that data which is good quality or which contains all the relevant information is used for training. Now, machine does not understand data because generally most of this data is in the text form or it is in the form, which is not understandable by machine. So something has to convert this into machine form and at the same time retain the relationship between the data. So when I'm talking about black and white, or if I say day and night, somehow black and white and day and night are related. So if I represent black by some number and white by some number, then the distance between these two numbers should be almost same as the distance between day and night. So relationship will be preserved accordingly. Similarly, king and queen, prince and princess, they are related. Brother and sister, mother and father, or father and mother, sorry. So we need to preserve the relationship. So generally this is done by a process called embeddings in case of AI. So embedding is translating your data from strings to numbers, and these numbers are preserved in such a manner that relationships are intact. And then this is being fed to a model. And in case of AI, the model that we are using is deep learning model mainly. And then this model is trained, and then this is giving the output. And again, this output is also sometimes, or the new data is also used as a feedback to train the data. Then I'm also showing user input because with the generative AI, the trained data can also receive input from user in human language. Of course, this is a very simplified one, but this suffices our purpose to know how the bias is propagating. So bias is coming from data, first of all, we know that. And then how you're selecting the data. For example, let's say I am a fan of certain actor. And if someone asks me to say, okay, these are the all-time great movies, somehow I'll be using, unconsciously or consciously, I'll be using the movies of that actor whom I like most. So bias could be because of the way I'm selecting my data to train my model. So this is known as sampling bias, in which you are, because you can't use the entire data, you will be sampling data. So while sampling, you can make a bias. You can create a bias. For example, I can give you another example. For example, let's say as a PhD student or as a researcher in an institute, you have to actually devise a system which can understand human, which can understand my voice and can convert this into text. Let's say we are designing a system like that. Now, what will be your instinct? You will be going to the people and say, okay, speak these sentences. You'll be collecting data like that. Now, generally, we all go for convenience sampling. Okay, I'm in this institute. Let me, go to my friends. Then you say, okay, no, I have to add some diversity to, okay, then I'll go to the next classroom. Maybe I'll go to my seniors. Maybe I'll go to some of the juniors. Now, maybe I can go to some faculty members. So we are going in convenience. But then someone says, no, it is still not very diverse. So then say, okay, sir, मैं अपने घर जा रहा हूँ, मैं वहाँ से लेके आ जाऊँगा. You go to your home place, then you take it from your friends and relatives. So generally, most of us will collect data like this. Is that right? But this data is very biased. Why? Because most probably, if you are in an education system, you are already collecting data from the people who are already at the same education level as you. So maybe you are missing out on the people who might not have the privilege to get that much education. Part one, you might be missing out to the people who might be knowing more than one language, or who will be knowing only one language. They might have some accent because of the way they are speaking natively. So there are many factors which have not actually crept into that particular system. So that data is going to be biased, not because you wanted it to be biased. It is biased the way it was collected. It was sampled. Then second thing is, while processing also, that bias can come into the picture. And model itself can create a bias. What kind of model you are going to use? Because every model is not perfect. Every model is going to be trained on some data. The major problem comes when the data is unbalanced. I can give an example. For example, let's talk about banking transaction. In banking transaction, every transaction is not going to be fraud. Even we can't even say that 1 in 1,000 transaction is going to be fraud. So let's say 1 in 1 million transaction is going to be a fraud. So now if you look at the entire transaction from, let's say, past 5 years, maybe all the banks in India, that will be too much data. But the problem is that in that data, fraud data is only very, very less. Is that right? 0.0001%. Am I right? Now, let's say if your system, you design a system and this is going to classify all your valid transactions as good. Even then the accuracy will be 99.999. Is that right? Even if it is defaulting in, it is making mistake on all the fraud transaction, not identifying them as a fraud, still the accuracy will be very high. But actually it is not a good representation of the data because the data itself was very, very low. So naturally, and we find such imbalanced data at many places. Everyone is not going to get a disease, and sometimes so then it becomes disease detection may be problem, and system might be exhibiting very good accuracy, but actually it is not detecting the disease. So unbalanced data is the biggest challenge in many of the scenarios. So that can also lead to biased output. So through the accuracy may be good, but system is not working. Then it could be algorithmic bias. Now, why the algorithmic bias? Ultimately, you have to understand that all these are some kind of optimization algorithm. And the problem with the neural network-based system designs is that these optimization algorithms are not even guaranteed to be optimal. They can actually give you suboptimal result, and at different times they can give you different results. So if you try to find answer today, it will be something. Tomorrow, it might be something else. And this has nothing to do with anything. It is the way the system works. So now the choice of optimization algorithm, the choice of how you update your model, at what frequency you update model, it can also impact the kind of the bias the system is showing. Then another problem is labeling. It is data driven, but who is going to tell the data whether this data is right or wrong? For example, let's talk about natural language processing. Let's say you are giving some query to ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot. Answer comes. Answer is very beautifully structured. Some points, something highlighted, and then a very soft language. Do you want me to help you with this? And initially, and very encouraging statement. Oh, what a nice question, very insightful question, very brilliant question, something like this.
But unless you are a domain expert, you may not be able to see whether the answer is correct or not. So let's say there are, even if there are 5 domain experts, someone can say, oh, this, I will rate this answer 8 out of 10. Someone will say, no, 6 out of 10. Someone can say, no, it has missed very important point, 4 out of 10. So even humans can differ, domain expert can differ on the same answer. So the labeling of the data may not always be correct. For example, if the image is shown to different people will interpret it differently. Some people will look at foreground only. Some people will look at foreground as well as background. So people have a different way of expressing the same image. So even if you label the data, the label may not be consistent across the human beings because machines can't label it. Unless machine gets trained, unless machine learns everything, they cannot label it. So you have to get labeling done by humans. So there could be inconsistency in label, and that could lead to the bias. So this is just a summary of what could be the different kind of biases. The biases can originate from data because of the sampling, because of the historical bias. What do we mean by the historical bias? I told you about that 20 years back, most of the women were not in the workforce. So if you look at the data during that time, we will find that the number of women were very less. So if we use this historical data, even now there are reasonable number of women working, but if we combine all this data, again, as far as the machine is concerned, average number of women working in the workforce will be less, because historical data will actually average out. Actually, it will bring the average down for the minority group. Is that right? And if we talk about physically challenged people, now the work opportunities have opened, and society is encouraging that we should allow people to work if they want to work. But if you look at the historical data, again, negligible opportunities, negligible representation. So historical bias will be there in the data, sampling bias will be in the data, there could be statistical, there could be measurement bias. Ultimately, from where you are going to collect the data. At some point, let's say I want to collect the recordings of the people. So I will use some recording device. That recording device can have biases because it might not represent all the frequencies faithfully. So the quality of the voice of the same person may be different. So this can introduce a bias. Algorithm can have a bias, the way you are setting your objective function, whether that objective function is trying to help the minority group or it is going to help the majority group. That can change. Society can have a bias. Superstitions. Number 13, you will find that in Western countries, many of the hotels don't have 13 number. There's no 13th floor. 12 ke baad mein seedha 14 hoga. But in Eastern countries, 13 is not considered a bad number. So now if you're trying to train AI on the data which is collected from, let's say, Western countries, and you're an architect, you're trying to design a hotel, then it will say 13 number, it will try to avoid 13 number. So this is a societal bias which has crept into AI. Then there could be other kind of societal biases, the way people believe that this food is going to help, this food is not going to help. So there is something which are customs or society rule on something. So this can also create biases. Then the person who is writing the algorithm can have bias. The way this, and another problem is, okay, let's go to further. This is our political power. The problem is sometimes we might not even be aware of the challenges which are faced by other group. Is that right? Sometimes we all have seen, for example, I'll give a very simple example, and most of the girls and women who are participating today will agree with me. Most of the time, the rotating chairs are not found very comfortable by women who are wearing saris or dupattas, because somewhere they will get entangled into the wheels, and it half the time you are trying to avoid that. So you might not like that very, very good experience. That's part one. Part two, most of the time the height will be adjusted to exactly. If you look at the way the tabletops are designed, table heights are designed, they are not for women. They are not taking average women height into account. They are actually taking average male into account because they are being designed by male. It's not that they are anti-women. No. they have not actually thought from that perspective. But now when we find that design teams where women and men are participating, you find better designs because these designs are going to be applicable to both of them. So they are trying to look at, if you're going to design it like that, then they will come with different solutions. So the design perspective, this is a very simple example, but this, but in the coding also, this can happen in any design system. If the people are not aware of the issues or challenges or sensitive to the issues or challenges of the other group, the design might be subconsciously or unconsciously biased. This is an actual scenario. Education as well as college education in the entire world. In UK, generally they have A-level examination, 10th and 12th. They conduct the examination, so this decided to grade the student on the basis of the performance that they exhibited than the students who were from public schools, which was unfair. This is a system which is actually being used in USA, and the purpose of this system is to tell the judge, to assist the judge through analysis of historical data available about a convict or criminal, that whether he's going to offend again. And on that basis, the judges will decide the sentence. Now, the tool is supposed to assist them, not used to make the decision. But naturally, if the tool is telling you that this person is likely to commit the crime again, then naturally the judge will think, no, it's not. And what was the problem? The problem was it was actually impacting Black people more. So as per this, some people actually did the analysis of the tool, the way the tool was giving. Blacks are almost twice as likely as whites to be labeled a higher risk, but they actually didn't re-offend.
Implementing AI judges. So we all discussed this, that risk scoring and the black box.
Yeah, this is the same thing there only. This Amazon had the similar problem. They decided a hiring tool. They fed the resumes of all their CEOs till that point. Again, most of them are male. So ultimately, the tool was recommending more male to be included. So they ultimately scrapped it. Google also had the Google search was actually one of the AI researchers. She was a Black woman. She actually reported it to the Google, and ultimately she left Google. Anyhow, so she reported that when you try to search for women with good hairstyle, it will show white women. If you search for something like women working menial tasks, then it will show Black women. Okay, so that was the gender bias. Again, it's not that Google was biased against gender. It was just the data on which they trained their model was. So facial recognition has a similar problem. तो अपन शेयर कर देंगे ऐसे शेयर
खत्म हो गया ये तो नहीं
क्या पता चले क्या खत्म हो, तो कनेक्टेड है. तो मैं गई नहीं, इसलिए मैंने उसको अलग ही रखा हुआ था, उसको दूसरी विंडो पे रखा था.
Biases in systems, like let's say as we know that society has so many limitations. Shortcomings or biases. When we are doing a research work also, we have our limitations, like these things we will not be addressing. That is also an isolated event, like we are doing research in isolated event. If there are 6 aspects, we are comparing only 5. So bias, that is also being amplified.
Actually,
rely Yeah. ऑनलाइन यदि तो ज्यादा ज्वाइन करोगे
मैं तो छोटा ही
कोई भी नहीं निकलता पूरा रात तक बैठा रहता
कौन है निकलता?
है यदि ऑनलाइन देंगे तो ज्यादा लोग ज्वाइन करेंगे बोले मैं तो कभी छोड़ूंगा ही नहीं छोड़ता नहीं
इधर ही प्रॉब्लम आ रही है शेयर में problem आ रही है।
डेडिकेटेड अभी गया वापस
नहीं वो अनम्यूट किया मैंने,
स्लाइड चली
अब आ गया वापस। So similar problem can occur with the facial recognition algorithm, which actually are more accurate on white males, but may not perform that good on women and people of color. Of course, this case study is a bit old. So since then, AI models have been trained on larger data, but still, even in 2025, people are indicating that the bias is still there. Another one is related to loan and credit, as we talked about, that people, the way the place their address itself might be used against them while providing them loans. So these are some of the consequences of the biases, which we have already discussed at places. It can actually reinforce inequality. It can lead to the erosion of public trust. It can result in economic disadvantage, because if we do not, if the banks and the financial institutions, they do not help the underprivileged people, then they are actually taking away their means of livelihood, and that might actually create economic disparity. And then there could be legal and regulatory risk. It could be reputational damage once the AI system fails or result, then that institution or that organization or that model will lose the reputation. Then there are safety concerns. We do not know what, because there was a particular case in Spain, a particular school. A girl told her parents that her friends were actually circulating a nude picture of that girl. And she was very, very disturbed. And I'm talking years. So it's in fun. They actually created a new picture by using an AI, but actually it can have a large psychological damage to the concerned person. Then can AI be used as a knowledge weapon? It can be. We don't even know whether it is being. Over-reliance on AI without knowing whether we are actually getting the same answer as the other people across the world can actually be used to create a divide, which is a technical and educational divide. So I do not know about other people. When my browser, when I search something 10 years back, it would actually, whenever I look for something technical, it will actually hit MIT or Stanford or institutions like that, or Oxford. But nowadays, when I ask for something, it actually hits Baiju. Khan's Academy bhi baad mein aata hai. Generally near my area. They say that optimize my search by giving me fastest result nearby area, but that might not be the technical result I might be looking for. So it can create an educational divide. So how do we mitigate this? Mitigate is that we have to go for ethical AI. So AI has to be used, but it has to be used responsibly and ethically. So what we mean by that? So we have 4 pillars of ethical AI. It should be transparent. So everyone should be able to deduce how AI is making decision, which is also explainable AI, people call it. Accountable. Right now, if AI makes a decision and it is implemented, who should be legally liable for that decision? No one knows the answer. Should it be the person who used AI to make that decision? Should it be the creator of the AI which created that AI? So there is a blurred line. So unless we bring accountability into the system, responsible AI will not come. Because the people who are trying to sell AI, they would not try to make their system account. If there is no accountability, they will not try to bring any fairness or transparency to the system. Then it should be safe and robust, and it should actually protect individuals' data, or it should preserve privacy. How do we go for that? We try to make our design human-centric. We should take human should be the priority, and data should revolve around it, and data should not be used to define human, but human should be used, and its priority should be used to use the data. And how do we try to do that? We try to bring as diverse data as possible, try to include all concerned sectors or people or group, so that the AI decisions are not unfair to any particular group. Then algorithmic implementation should be subject to third-party independent audits, so that if algorithms are making some, because of their biases, are trying to give some output which is harmful to some groups, then it can be corrected. AI should be explainable. It should be able to tell why this decision was made, and it should be continuously monitored. Why? Because over the time, the data changes. The drift, what we call, there's a drift in the data. For example, as I told you that if we go back 20 years back, no, 20 years, no, let's say 40 years back, women in medical would be less than men. About 20 years back, they were almost 50%. I think in India now, they might be more than men in medical now. So maybe now we need to correct it and then bring more male into the stream. But the data itself is drifting. So as I told you, that historical data cannot be used in some cases, because it might actually not mitigate bias. It might actually propagate it. So we need to look at that drift also. Then the data should be audited. We need to check whether the data is fair to all concerned. It is fair to gender, it is fair to religion, it is fair to race, it is fair to income group, it is fair to age group, it is fair to physically challenged. There are so many factors. So it should be fair, almost fair to all the data. It should not be over fair at the same time. Okay, we'll come to that when we are going to do hands-on exercise. And it should be collection-centric mitigation. What we mean by collection-centric mitigation should be that we are collecting data from various diverse resources. And when we are processing the data, if the data is unbalanced, then the synthetic data, it is augmented by synthetic data for the minority class. So more data is generated for synthetic data is generated from minority class. But there is a catch here. That data is going to be generated from the distribution that you have. It might not actually reflect the correct data, but that's the best we can have. So data may need to be resampled so that the majority is sampled at a lower rate and minority sampled at a higher rate. Data may have to be reweighted. Some of the attributes which are sensitive may be given higher weight than the other one. And then some of the features may have to be removed if we think that they are adding to the bias or they are actually correlated to bias in some way. As I told you, that locality information can be used to infer that a person is from income group or low income group or in this area. जैसे आपको पता होगा, most of the students might be aware. I don't know about nowadays, but there was a time when some of the auto rickshaw driver, they would not come inside MNIT because most of the hostelers, they will ask them to come inside MNIT and then they won't pay them. So they decided, no, we will drop you at the gate, you pay us and we won't go inside. So, and now this might have started with one person or two persons, and then the entire auto community might have come to, no, we don't go there. This is a dangerous place. Similarly, if you might see that in Amazon, at some postcode, they will say, we won't deliver. There might be some reason because of that they have made that decision. Maybe the transportation cost is high. Maybe the people are reject most of the or asking for too many returns. There could be any number of the reasons, but the problem is this won't reflect the complete area. But ultimately, the machines have taken a decision, and that is being implemented, which is not fair to all of them. So algorithmic bias mitigation, again, you have to actually check that regularization or constraints are fairness aware and they are not going to propagate unfairness. Continues. Very important point is that in AI team, we have to have diversity. We have to have diversity in sense, we have to have mathematicians, we have to have logicians, we have to have computer scientists, we have to have social scientists because they understand society. We have to have ethicists because they know morals. We have to have people who are domain expert, but we need to know people who are know languages, the way the languages are understood by the people. We need to have psychologists. We need to have people who understand human emotions and compassion so that any bias which might be there. Now, if you have a large team, bias of one person will be cancelled by other person, the view of other person. So different perspectives can actually help mitigate biases. And I don't know whether you are aware or not aware, lately the AI companies, they started recruiting highly skilled mathematicians, highly skilled language experts, highly language experts, because they wanted machine to understand the way people understand. So with this, I'll be stopping at this point. I'm really sorry today we were interrupted quite a lot. So maybe from tomorrow we will do something. We will use some other policy to make it better. I'm not even sure that whether I was audible to you all at all times, but if there are any questions, I would like to take it. Thank you so much.
Most of the questions are,
You have to open it longer.
as you said, data drifts of the drift. So my question also will be integrated in that sense. I can create my- One of the core questions that I've been following many of seminars like Geoffrey Hinton. He also says that when you do not know how exactly they are implementing, what to predict, like what to, how they are doing, you want to understand what I understand. When time biases are there, after a certain decision is taken, and a very condition. That propagation, what they do is after that is done, then it revisits itself and it readjusts the weights and biases based on the So you know, if there are 5 parameters, in the first like decision, they got to know that the fifth one is having more importance than the
Okay. Okay. So the question is about backpropagation algorithm, which is the core algorithm for neural network based architecture. So actually in backpropagation algorithm, it is not very difficult what they are trying to do. They compute some answer and they check it with what the target answer should be. And depending upon that difference, they will try to adjust the weight. So let's say weight 1, if I increase and this brings it closer to the answer, so I will increase it. So another weight, if I decrease and it brings it closer to the answer, I'll decrease it. That's it. Nothing else. We are not doing anything. Term bias there does not mean the same bias as here. Let me tell you what the term bias means here. Now, because you must have done some elementary mathematics, so you know that you have line in a plane. The line can go through origin. Is that right? Now the problem is your data. Let's say you're classifying two different data, positive and negative. Let me call it yes and no, or good and bad. The problem is that your data might not be centered around origin. It might be shifted. So you have to shift this line. So that bias actually means that shift. That bias is not this. Okay, that term bias is not in the same sense. Okay, so that's one thing. So backpropagation algorithm is blindly trying to just change the weight so that ultimately for most of the input, the answer is as close to the target as possible. That's it. Is it right? So it is doing some kind. So statistically, it is working in some sense, but even when it is outputting something, especially in case of Gen AI, where we are generating. In prediction, again, we can say, okay, this might be the decision boundary. That's why the decision was taken like this. But in case of generative, we do not know why it is outputting this word. Again, we have some sense of knowledge that, okay, because when we look at the probability distribution and interrelationship between the words which we have derived from looking at so many documents, then after cat, we are going to get cats and dogs. Is that right? And the next probability is, so next probability could be after cats, we are having something else. Okay. So naturally, if I ask you to write a story about cats, most probably it might have dogs in that story telling. But still, we are not able to explain some of the answer because sometimes it appears that AI is generating answers even when there is no training data, what they call zero-shot learning. So they derive it from where AI derived that particular pattern. That's the problem. अभी और कोई है तो मैं देख रही हूँ. If there are any other questions, please let me know.
What question is? Huh?
Based on residential area, they are saying they may reject the person.
I'm not saying that. They might use this. For example, let me give you another example. Let's say insurance company has, let's say some report, blood report shows some presence of some protein in my blood. And let's say there is a study which says that presence of this protein may mean that I might become diabetic. I may not, I might. Okay, there is a probability of, let's say, 80% that I might become diabetic. The problem is if an insurance company knows this report, they will increase my premium. They won't tell me because I'm at higher risk as compared to others. Now, this is privacy. No, this is where privacy comes into the picture. Should they be knowing this? Because actually I'm not right now suffering from any disease. But because of the presence of that, they might say, no, you are likely to become after 5 years. So your premium is higher. So companies may use this to make such policies, which they might not advertise, which is going to remain opaque. But that could be a conflict of interest with the privacy preserving people, correct? So there are many such situations where people say that this can happen like this. So if you want, you should see the movie Minority Report, if you have not seen it. Minority Report. This is again, the report is like, we are preventing crime from happening. So AI is predicting the crime can happen and you're trying to prevent it. So that is the movie about. With Tom Cruise. Yeah. Should watch it. So I think if there are no questions, we'll be stopping this session. And we will meet again
15 minutes.
after 15 minutes.
Now you can switch it from, you do it from this one.